My name is Lisa Harder. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, and my connection to pulmonary hypertension is that I am a patient. So I got diagnosed in 2024 after being short of breath and that sort of thing. I had my daughter literally right before Christmas in 2022. I would go to the doctor and I'd kind of have my symptoms pushed aside and, oh, it's just you need to lose weight. It's just your body getting back into the swing of things, after having a baby. And then I finally went for a physical and saw some weird stuff on an ECG. The doctor I was seeing at the time did that as part of the physical, and they were like, you need to go to the hospital now. So I went, and then it was still a bit of a process, about 6 months, not as long as some people from what I understand, but just referrals and echoes and CT scans and blood work and all these sorts of things. And then they kind of rolled out everything. I got referred to the pulmonary hypertension clinic here in Edmonton, where I was diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary arterial hypertension. So no known cause, it just kind of happened. My daughter's 18 months at this time. So it's like, whatever's going on needs to be fixed. Like there's no option here. And it was really scary. Like you see pulmonary hypertension on these results. Nobody explains to you what that means, of course. You Google and you're like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to live? What does this mean? Am I going to not be able to work? My career had really started to take off. I finished my master's kind of a bit later in life. I'm a psychologist. And so everything was kind of really starting to flourish when I came back to work. And it's like, well, do I have to give that up? I don't know what my life is going to look like now going forward. It was a really scary time, not knowing what was happening and not knowing how long things were going to take, and a lot of advocacy. We really have to advocate a lot for ourselves and push to get things done quicker. It was a lot of advocating and sleepless nights and stress and worry and tears and just not knowing. It was probably honestly one of the worst times of my life leading up to that. You have the tools, right? And we know how to use them, but it's another thing when your world is entirely shaken and you have no idea of what's happening. I see my own therapist. I always have part of my self-care, right? So just kind of seeing her a little bit more frequently and being able to have space and use some of the tools that I know were helpful, but still unknowns, right? And so it kind of puts things in that therapy space. We know kind of what our clients are going through when we're meeting with them, but it's another thing when now you're thrust into that. Like, okay, I get it, but like, I really get it. What it means when you have the world entirely change in a way that you didn't expect. Like up until this point, I had never had anything up until this point. So it was total shock to find out that you have this rare disease. Honestly, like at this point in my life and my journey, I don't even notice that there's anything going on. I think from day one, because I, of course, researching everything, which that was one of the first things that Dr. Other was like, please don't read things on Google. It's going to create all this fear and like, there's a lot that's changed. So like, please don't do that. But I already had at that point. But I read a lot about, and he had talked a little bit about when I first got diagnosed with this drug called sotatercept that was coming out. And like, as much as pH, something we need to take seriously, right? There's some really good treatments that are coming. So I've been from day one saying like, yeah, if I qualify, please start me on it. I read about all these amazing things that this drug is doing for people. I'm willing to do anything at this point to live as normal life as I can for as long as I can. So like, let's do it. When the study got approved, he's like, hey, I think you might qualify for this. Symptoms had improved enough because there's exercise involved that I could exercise. And he's like, hey, like if you're interested in this, I think you'd be a good candidate. We kind of did some chatting about it because like outside of this, by Canadian standards, I wouldn't qualify for the medication because I'm not sick enough. But there's still some markers that were a little bit outside of where they should be. So he's like, okay, well, let's just do some extra tests. I had to go in for a heart cath again, which is always super fun. Not at all. But we went for that and was like, yeah, okay, well, I think this makes sense. Like, this is something we should try. But at the end of the day, of course, it's up to me to decide. I know it's more work because you have more visits to the hospital and all this kind of stuff. But I was like, yeah, anything that can possibly really benefit me, I'm willing to do. Even if it means more tests and feeling like a pincushion and feeling under the microscope and all of that. I never really sought out to be part of a clinical trial specifically, but it was just kind of really wanting to access the medication. Honestly, since getting on that, I don't even notice that I have pulmonary hypertension day to day. Like there's no symptoms. I can keep up with the 3 and a bit year old. I work full time. There's been really no impact on my day to day. I'm really grateful for that. I know that's not the experience of a lot of people. My partner is a stay-at-home dad. He really helps out a lot with our daughter. He's a really good support for me as well. Just times where I'm maybe like a little bit tired or whatever, or before I was on the medication that I am now, he'd be like, yeah, you know what, if you need to go to bed early, that's okay. I'll stay up with Ayla and like you go sleep or you go do whatever, right? And he's really supportive and encourages me to kind of slow down and take some time for myself, which I'm not always good at. One of the biggest shifts I had in thinking was like, okay, I have all these goals that I want to do, but what is actually really important? And at the end of the day, it's my family. My career is important, but like my family is also really important. And so I think it's really helped me to have like a better work-life balance than I think I would have otherwise, because we don't know what's going to happen. And so let's make the most of every moment, be in the moment, be present. And so I really, really try to do that every day. And so as much as PH sucks, and it sucks that this is the reality of things, it's also, I don't think I would have that shift in thinking had I not had this diagnosis. I don't know that I'm grateful for it, but like I'm grateful for that perspective change. When I first got diagnosed, I joined the Canadian group for people with PH. And I actually recently signed a contract with PHA Canada to work as a knowledge philanthropist in a volunteer position. I wrote an article also for the PH magazine that comes out through PHA Canada. Originally, like when I first got diagnosed, I just kind of reached out virtually through that support group. And it was really helpful in kind of understanding next steps and like, okay, this is what to expect. Like you read this online, but like this is the people who are living with this. It was nice to kind of just have that extra support there. Like just if you have questions, even like, okay, it's cold and flu season. What do I do? Right? Like, how do I navigate this as a child? Like even those logistical things. I feel really hopeful. At this point, I don't have a reason, I don't think, to really worry about anything. Like my treatments are working really well. Sotatercept has been amazing. I feel like I have a future. I was worried one of the biggest things was that I'm not going to grow up, really see my daughter grow up. And now I don't worry about that. I feel very, very hopeful about that I'm going to be around for all of her big milestones. And now my worry is like, how do I contain her? Make her not get into things she shouldn't be, rather than like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be around to see anything. It feels so hopeful. I mean, there's a lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of negativity. And it's not to say that people have a different experience, but I think for me, it just really speaks to like how varied our experiences are. And I've always been an advocate in any role that I've held, whether it's in like mental health or outside of that, or just causes that are important to me. For me, it's really important to advocate for awareness of this, first of all, but also like quick access to medication that we need, supports, all of that, because people don't know about it, right? And you're just kind of in this void of like, what, I don't know what to think, I don't know what to do, I don't know what the next steps are, I don't know what to expect. We need just more awareness, quicker access to things, and quicker, if possible, to be referred to the PAH clinic and diagnosed quicker. Because I think the other thing when I first was diagnosed that was challenging too is you see all these doctors that know nothing about it and they're telling you all these things that aren't true. And that doesn't help when you're already fearful. And then you get to the point where you actually meet with a specialist who's like, oh no, that's not accurate. And you're like, okay, but that was what they said, right? So I think just more education, both with health professionals, but also like for people who are experiencing this, the caregivers, on what to expect. Maybe areas that we might have to advocate for, or what we need to do to not have that needless anxiety. Because I mean, it's already life-changing. And if there's anything that we can do to ease some of that anxiety, the better. Maybe the other thing I would say too is sometimes people really hesitate, get involved in clinical trials. With sotatercept, people are like, well, it's an injection and I don't know how I feel about that. If you think it will help, take the chance, honestly, because I don't think it's unique to me. There's so many people that are on sotatercept that have had just like this really amazing change around. And I really hope for everybody to have that. Thanks for listening. My name is Lisa Harder, and I'm aware that I'm rare.